Welcome back to the Coffee with Crainer Show. Today I have Irek Kusmierczyk on the show today. If you don't know Irek, he is a former City of Windsor Councillor for Ward 7. He served 3 terms as a councillor, and now in October of 2019, he ran to be Member of Parliament to represent Windsor-Tecumseh and successfully won. So he is now a Member of Parliament and also the Parliamentary Secretary of Employment, Workforce Development, and Disability Inclusion. So today we're having him on the show to share some of the lessons he's learned and also the first impressions Irek's had so far as an MP. So thank you for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Lyndon. Absolutely great to be here. Love your show, and really appreciate you taking the time as well.
Thank you so much. Happy to have you here. So back in October, you were elected. And I'm curious to know, what was the first thing that struck you or made you really want to run for Member of Parliament?
Well, you know what, that's an excellent question. And what I can tell you is, just a little bit of backstory as well too. Our family came to Canada in 1983 as political refugees. And my father was involved in the Solidarity movement at the time. And this was the first free and independent trade union in the communist bloc. And so he was very active in politics very early on. And, he was fighting for the rights of workers. He was fighting for the rights of everyday residents and citizens. And because of that, he was arrested in the middle of the night. He was imprisoned. And that's the reason why we came to Canada as political refugees. And so sort of the notion of sort of community service or politics was always something that was close to our family. It was something that was discussed at the kitchen table. And I think it was simply because the politics, whether geopolitics or local politics, had such a profound impact on sort of our family and where we ended up. And so I think it was always something that was part of our everyday conversation. But in terms of why did I decide to sort of jump in or throw my hat in the ring this time around? I would say that, as a city councillor, I love being a city councillor. I love being able to help neighbors and help your community. And what you basically realize at a certain point is that in order for our city in Windsor and Tecumseh and our communities to be able to deal with some of the challenges that we're facing, whether it's challenges related to infrastructure, to flooding, healthcare, you name it, economic development, we're going to really need to have support from upper levels of government at the provincial level and also at the federal level. We really do need a strong partner. And we also need a voice at the table to be able to have someone that is actually part of the governing party as well too. That matters as well. And so ultimately, I felt that I could be of service to our community, to our cities, and be able to work with the mayors and be able to work with city council to be able to get investment here to our community. And that's one of the big reasons I decided to run.
Awesome. Yeah, you're definitely bringing that 3 years of experience and also your PhD in political science to the table, being a newly elected MP. And one of the curious question I had is, in October 2019, you were elected, and now with the recent pandemic, it's your first year as a MP. You're having to make a huge transition, especially during a pandemic. It can be very new and ever changing. So I was very curious, what has this experience so far been like for you and your family?
Well, great question again, Lyndon. And so what I can tell you is that first and foremost, it really is a tremendous honor. And when you step into the House of Commons for the very first time, I can tell you that it has a profound impact. It's just awe-inspiring, and it's absolutely incredible. And I'll tell you really quickly to connect it to my first sort of answer to your question. My first opportunity to speak in the House of Commons, my first speech, was actually on the anniversary, December 13th, when my father was imprisoned, when my dad was imprisoned by this military police. And so you had this moment where our family sort of came full circle. 30 plus years ago, we came to Canada with with a few items and came here as political refugees. And this country and this community welcomed us with open arms. And 30 years later, you're standing in the House of Commons and able to speak about this experience as well too. And that tells you all you need to know about how amazing our country is and how amazing our community is. So, very profound sort of moment. And it was wonderful to have my family there as well too during the swearing in ceremony and being part of this journey. But what I can also tell you is that the last 6 or 7 months since the election has been it's been the most intense period of work in my life. It's an incredibly demanding role, and a lot of the MPs that have, before I took my seat in the House of Commons, a lot of MPs that were veteran MPs approached me and they said, Irek, get used to the fact that a typical day on the Hill, you're going to start at 7 or 8 in the morning and you're not going to leave Parliament Hill until 9 or 10 o'clock at night. And that's sort of your typical day. And so they said, just be prepared for the fact that it is an intense workload. And that's been the case. And that was before the pandemic. And of course, when the pandemic arrived, things got even more intense. It's as if things sort of got kicked up another level. And what made it all the more difficult is, especially early on in the pandemic, our constituency office I received a number of calls, many calls from residents saying that they're losing their job, they're having trouble paying their bills, their businesses are going under. It was an incredibly difficult period of time because the pain and the hurt in our community was so broad and so deep. And so it was a difficult time, but I can tell you, as difficult as the challenge was, what's amazing about our community is how resilient our community is.
Yes.
It's incredible how our community comes together. You see examples of, for example, businesses that are converting their operations to produce hand sanitizer, masks, to produce PPEs. You see our frontline workers stepping up, and you see our community rallying around all of our frontline workers, whether it's nurses, whether it's doctors, EMS, and fire, police. And that's been incredibly inspiring as well to see. And so, again, as hard as the challenge has been, you feel like you're part of this community, you're part of this big team working together and pushing towards the same goal. So it's been remarkable in that sense as well.
Yes, definitely. You made a great point about the long work hours, and your family is open-minded to that, right? It's something that it comes with the job, right?
Well, what I can tell you, so my wife Shauna is a nurse practitioner here at Hotel Dieu Grace Healthcare, and so you see, for example, you see how much work she puts in. You see all the sacrifices that our frontline healthcare workers are making, and it just gets you sort of. It just inspires you to want to do more, to help out more, to be part of the solution. And I can tell you, she's been incredibly understanding and supportive. She's also a worker bee, and so that sometimes has been difficult because as a member of Parliament, most weeks you basically fly to Ottawa on Monday and you come home on a Friday evening. So Monday through Friday you're away from home. But both of us again, we like to keep busy as well, and we always keep in touch by phone and by Skype, and so you find ways to basically work together and support each other, and that's what we've done basically throughout this transition.
That's what
I'm very, very lucky to have that kind of support.
Exactly, that's what family's all about.
Yeah.
So, newly elected, I'm very curious to know, what are some things that surprised you being elected as an MP? What are some things that going from councillor to MP, some things that were surprising to you?
Yeah, again, great question. One thing that stands out in my mind is just how incredibly approachable cabinet members have been. And when you're in the House of Commons, there's a room right next to it called the Caucus Lounge, and each party has its own sort of caucus lounge. And that's where the members of Parliament sort of mingle and they hang out before going into the chamber to debate and discuss issues and whatnot. And so it's usually a place that's really buzzing. It's filled with folks. And you have an opportunity to literally walk by a cabinet minister and tap them on the shoulder and say, hey, can I borrow you for 10 minutes to talk about an issue that's really important in Windsor and Tecumseh, or
Wow.
an issue that we're dealing with? And you're literally sitting with the finance minister, you're sitting with the minister of health or the deputy prime minister, and you're having these conversations about what's happening in our community and what are the issues that need to be resolved. And that was really surprising how approachable they are, how responsive they are to the situations that you're seeing. And what I can tell you, Lyndon, is every evening I'm on a phone call with cabinet ministers as well. And so during the day, I get a chance to talk with constituents. I get a chance to talk with business owners, with community organizations. And then every evening, I get a chance to sort of communicate to cabinet ministers what we're hearing on the ground. What are the concerns? What are the issues? And it's been remarkable to see those concerns being translated into policy, being translated into programs. And so again, just seeing how responsive the sort of the machinery of government. I expected it to be a lot more clunky and take a lot more time, but it's been really remarkable. Wow. Just again, how much of a people to people sort of mechanism it really is. So it's been wonderful. What's also surprised me, I remember the first time when I was sitting in the in question period, and if you've ever tuned in question period, you get a chance to see all the heckling that takes place at question period, and that's something that was really different from my experience on city council. And the heckling can get pretty it's pretty caustic, it's pretty loud, and it was interesting to see my first time experiencing that. And even when you watch it on TV, it's CPAC kind of mutes it a little bit, so you really don't get a chance to hear it. But it is some pretty strong heckling that takes place there in the chamber, so you have to kind of get used to that. Because at City Hall in Windsor, on City Council, we would have some pretty good debates, and we would have some pretty good discussions, and sometimes some pretty strong disagreements. But you would never see Councillor Geniac or Councillor Bordelin interrupt somebody while they're speaking, or heckle them across the floor when they're trying to make a point. And you just realize that is sort of part of the House of Commons and part of the work of Parliament, I guess. So that took a little bit of time to get used to.
Awesome. Yeah, that's it's definitely something I had no idea about, and it's such a different atmosphere, right?
Yes.
And I'm curious, and this could be beneficial to students or young leaders that are looking to go into a career as a politician, whether it be municipal, federal, provincial. And I'm curious to know, what are some new skills that you've had to learn in order to be an MP, or some skills that you're currently learning to be in this role?
Great question. And again, I really do think that, the 6 years I spent as a city councillor, I think really does prepare you in a lot of ways for your role as a member of Parliament. So for example, the importance of really establishing a connection with constituents. It's really easy to sort of focus on the legislation work and focus on, the things that you have to do in Ottawa and whatnot. But fundamentally, as an MP, you have to maintain that strong connection with your constituents. Yes. You've got to speak with them. You've got to listen to their concerns. You've got to reach out, talk to businesses, to constituents, to residents, to organizations, to really see what's happening on the ground. What are the concerns that they're feeling? So that was something that's really important. Communication, obviously, is really critical as well too. Public speaking is a skill that is really important. Yes. And also being able to communicate. Social media is incredibly important. Platforms like this, Lyndon, are becoming more and more important as well too, to communicate and connect in real time with residents. Teamwork is something that's absolutely critical. So even on city council, even simple projects like putting in a park bench, or putting in street lights, or putting in bus shelters, you need to be able to work with the mayor. You need to be able to work with your council colleagues. You need to be able to work with the city engineer, with the director of parks, and the entire team there to be able to get things done. And so you realize very quickly, you cannot be a one-man show. You have to rely on teammates, and you have to trust your team and build a really good team around you. And then I guess the fourth lesson you learn in city council is you have to be persistent. And so, especially in politics, oftentimes you're not successful in terms of getting your policy or program passed on your first try. You've got to be able to regroup and readjust and keep trying. And so you learn how to sort of be persistent as well too. But in terms of new skills, so what I can tell you is what I found, again, in addition to the work being really intense, is that your schedule changes, on the drop of a hat. So you can show up to work at 8 o'clock in the morning and you can have your day sort of scheduled, what it's going to look like, people you're going to talk to, meetings you're going to have. And then all of a sudden there's an issue that rises. There's a crisis. There's something that comes up. And all of a sudden your day is turned upside down, and you have to be able to adapt and adjust very, very quickly. And you have to be okay with that. And you also have to be okay. Sometimes you're called into a meeting to replace someone or to be part of a stakeholder meeting that's urgent. And you have to be okay not having all the answers and not having all the information. Sometimes you simply don't have the time to do that. And you have to be okay with the information that you have. And you have to be able to adapt to those situations as well too. So there are skills that you pick up as you sort of go along, but a lot of the skills you also learn as a city councillor as well, I have to tell you. Yes,
and it's something that I'm very curious about is going from a city councillor to a member of parliament. What are some major differences between these two roles?
Well, I mentioned some of the similarities, but some of the differences, I would say right off the bat, when it comes to the budget, there are a few more zeros at the end, I guess you could say, when you're dealing with federal programs, because they are coast to coast. They're not just regional. So the programs are a lot larger in scale. The budgets are a lot bigger. But some of the differences, for example, the travel is something that you have to get used to. So something that I had mentioned where literally on a Sunday night, I would hop on a plane, travel to Ottawa, and then fly home on a Friday. So that sort of adds a challenge as well too, both to work-life balance and also your ability to connect with your constituents as well too. And again, I mentioned the fact that again you have to get used to some of the heckling that takes place, and that's something that was new and that was really different. But I'll be honest with you, Lyndon, I always looked at my role as an MP. I always looked at it as an extension of my role as a city councillor and representing both Windsor and Tecumseh. And I really see myself as an extension of the mayors, an extension of the city councillors, and I see myself as their teammate. Yes. We're all working in the same, we're trying to do the same thing for our cities, our communities. We're trying to improve quality of life here. And I'll be honest with you, what's been really nice as well too is about once a week, I also get on a Skype call with Brian Massey, who's the NDP member in Windsor West. I get on a call with David Epp, who's the Conservative member of Parliament for Chatham and Leamington and Kent, and also with Chris Lewis, who's the Conservative member of Parliament in Essex. And the four of us get together and we talk about issues where we can work together, where there's issues of common ground and issues that are regional in nature that we can actually advance here together. So it's been really nice to see that there's an understanding, I think, especially here locally, we're all playing for the same team and we're all pulling in the same direction. And really, we want to make sure that we're doing best by our community here, that we really are on the same team.
Yes, and that's a great point. And it's great to see that no matter what party you stand for, the ability for everybody to come together and work collectively is so important with politics today. So thank you for sharing that. And absolutely. The final question I have here today is, if you're able to explain a time where you either had a mistake or took a risk and were not successful, what did you learn from that?
Great question. I can tell you when I ran the first time federally in 2011, I lost in a big way, and I lost that election, and to Mr. Joe Comartin, who in my opinion is sort of the quintessential member of Parliament, highly respected and regarded across all parties. And even in a situation where you don't attain what you're hoping to get, the process itself, the journey, you learn so much. And I learned a lot on that campaign trail. I learned a lot from Mr. Comartin and the way he carried himself, and then also the way he carried himself in Parliament as well too. And so you take some of those lessons with you. What I can tell you is when I first got on City Council, sometimes you would get really frustrated if you weren't able to get an idea or a policy or a program passed, and you would kind of get frustrated. And it took me a while to realize that it really is a process, and that in politics, you don't always get what you're hoping to get. You don't always achieve what you're trying to achieve on your first try, on your first crack, and you have to really have that persistence to regroup, adjust, make adjustments, and then come back again. And so what I would say is that you learn very quickly that politics really is very much a process. And also that no is never the final word in politics as well too. So even if you aren't successful your first try, you have to really come back at it again and again, and sometimes again. And some of the most successful city councillors or members of parliament are ones that simply have that sort of stick-to-itness, that ability to keep coming back and being very persistent in what you're asking for. What I can tell you, I learned a great deal when I was working at We Tech Alliance, which is a local regional accelerator that works with technology companies and tries to help build the tech talent pipeline in our community. And there was a program that we were involved in helping to grow in our community called First Robotics. And this is a program for high school students. They build these 120-pound robots that compete against each other inside an arena.
Wow.
It's a global program. And I just remember watching these young high school students building these 120-pound robots that compete in this arena. And oftentimes these robots they break down, they don't do what they're supposed to do, your plan doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. And it was remarkable seeing these young people, their resilience, being able to overcome these challenges, being able to sort of, if a robot broke, they would get together, try to fix it in the pit area, and then get the robot back in the arena to continue to fight another day. And you just learned about, again, that resilience that I think is a skill, and it's a leadership trait and a character trait that is, I think, important, whether it's in business, whether it's in politics, you name it. You just need to have that sort of grit, that determination, and that stick-to-itiveness that is, I think, really, really critical. And I saw that in the First Robotics program from a lot of high school students.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. It's definitely so important to get back up, try again, and again, be persistent with whatever you're trying to achieve, and you'll get there. So the last question, the final question, and the best question of the day is, I know you have your cup with you. John McGivney, that's perfect. I have to ask, where in Windsor is your favorite place to grab some coffee or tea?
Oh, yeah, that's a hard question. That's like asking what your favorite pizza place is. Obviously, we have tremendous coffee shops in Windsor and Tecumseh. Some of the places that I like to go to Anchor Coffee, for example. I like to go to Tallulah Cafe as well. But there's really just too many places to name.
Yes.
Karma is a really nice one as well too. I mean, there's just so many great places, establishments across Windsor-Tecumseh and really Windsor-Essex. I just like exploring all of them, to be honest with you. So March 21 as well is a great place downtown as well. There's just too many to name. We could spend an hour just going through them. Yeah,
that's so true. The great thing about Windsor is we have so many local coffee roasters and so many wineries and distilleries. It's great. We have that in this community.
Breweries as well too. And,
yes.
It's true. And we are really spoiled in terms of the great restaurants, the food that we have here, like you said, the distilleries, the breweries, the wineries. And it's interesting when you see family coming up from other cities, whether it's Waterloo or even Toronto or Ottawa or whatnot, they're always just so impressed with just the variety that we have here. And I think that it's a reflection of a couple things. I think it's a reflection of the diversity of our community. And we see that in the diversity of the restaurants that are here as well. But we've always been a incredibly innovative community as well too. And so I think that's part of it as well too. A lot of the stuff that we try is just so different, so unique. And I think it's great when the world kind of learns about it, and people from outside the city get to learn a little bit about what we have here.
Yes, definitely Windsor proud. And thank you, Irek, for joining us on the show today. I really appreciate your time, and I hope that today's conversation inspired some young and emerging leaders who may be interested in politics down the road. So thank you.
Lyndon, this was great. I really enjoyed it. This is a phenomenal platform, and thank you so much for providing this great service for our community. This was wonderful.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.